In this lecture, we're going to listen for key presses when the player is close to the treasure chest. We mustn't open the contents of the treasure chest until the player is close enough to trigger this action. Otherwise, they'll be able to collect items without taking risks. First, we should check if the player is near the treasure chest. In your editor, open the treasure chest component. At the top of the file, define a private Boolean variable called isInteractable with an initial value of false. If this variable is true, the player will be able to open the chest. Next, define another Boolean variable called hasBeenOpened with a value of false. If a treasure chest has been opened, there isn't a reason to open it again. We can keep track of this information with another variable. Next, let's update the onTriggerEnter method by setting the isInteractable variable to true. But what about when the player exits the collider? Unity has another event for detecting this action. Below the onTriggerEnter method, define another method called onTriggerExit. The name of this method is very important. If Unity finds this method in any component, the collider component will fire it after triggering the event. We can use this method to set the isInteractable variable to false. Our variables are ready. The next step is to define a method for handling the key press. If you can recall, we use the input system to listen for key presses on the keyboard. In our asset, we have an interaction called interact. This action has a keyboard binding to the E key. Let's use this key to open the treasure chest. If this key is pressed, this component handles the event emitted by the input system. Let's define a public method called handleInteract. The name of the action was called interact. You can view the input action asset for a refresher on the name. Inside the parameter list, add a parameter called context with the inputAction.callbackContext type. This type won't be available until we add the respective namespace. At the top of the class, add a namespace called UnityEngine.InputSystem. Head back to our method. In this method, we should check the isInteractable variable before opening the treasure chest. We don't want to prematurely open the chest. Add a conditional statement with the following conditions: not isInteractable or has been opened. Two conditions are being performed. We're checking the isInteractable variable for a false value. If it is false, the chest should not be opened. This means the player is not close enough to open the treasure chest. Alternatively, if the treasure chest has been opened already, we should deny subsequent attempts to open it. Let's add the return statement to prevent the rest of the method from running. If the checks pass, we should log a message in the console. With the print method, log the following message: opening treasure chest. Next, let's set the hasBeenOpened variable to true. Our method is ready. The last step is to run this method during the interact event. We can do so from the Game Manager. Keep in mind, the Game Manager object is responsible for loading the input actions. It has the events for when a key is pressed. Switch back to Unity. Select the Game Manager object from the hierarchy. Under the Player Input component, search for the Interact event from the component. Search for the Treasure Chest Game object. Make sure you're searching for this object from the Scene tab, not the Assets tab. Next, let's set the method to treasurechest.handleInteract. After making those changes, try playing your game. If we press the E key, nothing happens. That should be the desired behavior since we're not close enough to the treasure chest. If I approach the treasure chest and try pressing the key again, the message from our method gets logged. However, it only gets logged once. Attempting to press the key multiple times results in nothing happening. Perfect. We're successfully interacting with the treasure chest. In the next lecture, let's start updating the parameters from the animator controller.